Hello, Shruti. Sarbani, can you hear me? Hello. Good evening, Deepak. Deepak, can you hear me? Hello, Deepak.
Hello.
Yeah, Deepak, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. So, you have MEG-8?
Yes, sir. New literature in English. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Fine. Yeah. So today we will talk about the naming the disciplines in this class.
Okay,
So,
sir.
Deepak, before that, I would like to know you. Where are you from?
I am from Sundargarh, Odisha.
Okay. And what are you doing apart from studies? Are you working somewhere?
Yes, sir. Working at collectorate.
Okay, you're working at collectorate. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. Okay. So we will talk about, you know, the new literatures of English. We'll talk about the Commonwealth literature. We will talk about the apparent newness, the underlying, continuity of the newness, and enabling the post-colonial engagements. Okay,
Okay, sir.
okay. So, coming to the first, framing the Commonwealth literature and tracing a chronology of events leading up to the establishment of the Commonwealth literature as the discipline, it is common to ascribe the beginnings to universities in the United Kingdom, and in the 1950s, some courses in American Commonwealth, Irish and African literatures were offered in a few provincial UK universities. So the value judgment which implied in the word provincial is unmistakable, and it is no wonder that Dennis Walder, from whose account of the Commonwealth project this phrase is taken. You find should also you find that it you know denigrate other formerly colonial countries by including little clusters of local texts into the syllabuses of English departments, and often with patronizing disclaimers. So you find Walter's survey gives a very new turn to the disjunct between the metropolis and the periphery. You find the former usually, taken to refer to the origin um, or center of the colonial power, and the later the periphery. You find is the region where over whom that power was exercised and continues, to be exercised in the neo-colonial forms. So thus you find if London was the metropolitan center, then countries in the Asia or Africa colonized by the British were the outposts or the periphery of the British Empire. So you find the farmer is you find is um, typified as cosmopolitan and later as a provincial in colonial discourse. Okay, so you find as Walter's use of the word the provincial and his view of local texts included in the syllabi at the University of Cape Town in South Africa indicates the center of Commonwealth literary studies which lay elsewhere. Indeed, you find he glorifies the first school of Commonwealth literature, which was founded at Leeds University in 1964, where you find some of the best works found their way onto the Leeds syllabus. So, peripheral origins in the other universities you find in the UK are not listed by Walter. So, hence it is very useful to have another view of the origin as given by Anna Rutherford in the foreword to a collection of essays on the field arising out of a conference which is held at Aarhus University in Denmark. So Rutherford, prospectively um, pretends the question which might be asked, what business have the Danes with the Commonwealth? So the answer lies in the founding of possibility the first Institute of Commonwealth Literature at Aarhus in 1958 by Professor Greta Hort. Are you getting me? This is, the background of the study.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Shruti, I hope you can hear me. Okay. So, you find here we have talked about two instances of the institutional temporal origins of Commonwealth literature to point out how institutions are instrumental in determining the new areas of study. But you find the academy curricula are influenced by the political, by the social, economic, economic factors, and is also born out of the case of Commonwealth literature becoming an object of study in 1950s and 1960s. So many erstwhile colonized countries, gained their independence at this time. You find India and Pakistan emerged as a nation in 1947. Nigeria and Kenya, you find, came up in 1960s and 1963 respectively. Okay, and you find the West Indian Federation was formed in 1960s, and in Walter's view, the literary and the cultural expressions of the nationalist strivings during the process of decolonization produced writing in English which had a major impact internationally, and this can be one reason for their inclusion in university curriculum in the UK. But you find it is also useful to remember that post war Britain, especially the 1950s and the 1960s, experienced large scale arrival of migrants, belonging to its former colonies in Africa, Asia, and Caribbean. But while this produced, the historical political responses like the Immigration Act of 1968 as a strategy for excluding, the non-white settlers from any sense of national belongings, it is also served as an opportune moment for appropriating the black cultural production under the term Commonwealth literature. Okay,
Okay, sir.
so we will talk about the newness. So this Commonwealth literature, literary studies, as I told you, took their took as their objective study literatures of the newly independent nations. So colonizations in one form or the other was responsible for the use of English in these regions, which already had an established tradition of orature, literature in languages other than English. Thus, we find the language, the English language literature produced a new addition to the body of literature already existing in various languages in the country like India, Kenya, Nigeria, Australia, New Zealand, and Canada. But however, you find this is not how the newness of such literature is perceived. As in terms, as in the term, Commonwealth literature, the assimilationist model is at work in terms of new literatures in English. So indeed, you find when discussing the former, Rashidi voiced, the suspicion, the quite possibly, it is no more than an ungainly term for the younger English literatures. So, when assimilated into the existing body of English literature, which is seen as an repository of universal human values, the new or the younger literature in English are perceived as enriching or uh, invigorating it. So we find, Bruce King in his introduction to literatures of world in English acknowledges that there are different, national literary traditions with values and histories of their own, but that each literature is a part of world English literature and shares it in the heritage of British writing. Okay,
Okay, sir.
yeah, just a minute. Yeah. So you find, so there you find, so King's liberal humanist, critical stances fails to mask the contradictions which inherent in the formulation. So if you find if each literary tradition reflects its own values, then clearly the heritage of British writing will have values which are markedly different from the other national literary traditions. You can say not the least because a different set of material and political conditions are constructive of it. So we find thus the nostalgia for the long established English tradition, which King, sees expressed into the various national literatures, is not simply an ideal of a more ordered, settled and complex society, as assumes. But the inclusion of this ideal and appreciation of the literature is reflective of it was part of the colonial agenda to form a class of persons, Indians in blood and color, but English in taste, in opinions, in morals, and in intellect, as Macaulay put it in his Minutes of Indian Education. So, having outlined the problems in King's critical formulations on the newly emerged literature in English, it must be said that his definition of it is nothing if not inclusive. So, you see, In find in a later work which is entitled The New English Literature, Cultural Nationalism in a Changing World, which was published in 1980s. King focused on literature from six countries, that is Nigeria, India, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and the West Indies, and on authors from each of these places. Okay, so recent European publication using this concept of newness prefer other less inclusive definitions, and terminologically you find inconsistency too abounds, as in a work which is edited by Pindella and Davis, which is entitled as Imagination and Creative Impulse in the Post-Colonial. Just a minute. Yeah, in the Post-Colonial Literatures in English series. And while the collection includes, reading of African, Indian, Canadian, Australian texts and literatures, the editors, you find, are very firm about what constitutes the new literature. So, thus, you find the literature of Nigeria, India, Zimbabwe are discussed because they are new nations, and those of Australia, Canada, New Zealand, you find because they have been populated by new immigrants. So the West Indies fits both the categories, since not only does its population comprise those who are immigrants, but also because it has recently become a nation or other, you know, a federation of nationalities. And the focus on new lands inscribing, themselves on the imagination of emerging countries makes the emphasis on Canadian, Australian, and New Zealand literature inevitable, which is why in you find this is because of the less inclusive definition than kings. So, talking about the variants of newness, you find European critics have tried to pull Commonwealth literature and new literatures in English away from being a mere, supplement to British literature. So, one of the reports which read out at the symposium on imagination and creative impulse in the new literatures in English called for a new integral model of organization which would take account of the comparative, contextual, and multicultural aspect of the subject. Thus, you find accommodating the new um, the new literatures in a reformed structural pattern of the international in English literature. So this structural pattern is free of the association of assimilation and hierarchization, which is implied by the already critiqued nomenclature. So not only you find it is flexible enough to include the English language literature from countries not falling, within the Commonwealth umbrella, but also chosen to highlight the possible interconnectedness between the literature of various nations. That is, that what we say is international. Okay, clear?
Okay, sir.
So you find this is the purpose of another recent collection of essays, initially, which is read out at a conference of the European Association for Commonwealth Literature and Language Studies on the theme Nationalism versus Internationalism, which is subtitled as International Dimensions of Literature in English. And it sees these literatures as the form of globalization. In the same collection, you find Bruce King's essay uses the globalized American cultural model mentioned in the introduction to make the facile generalization that Commonwealth literature is itself multicultural and overseas, colony, which is by nature multicultural. But you find multiculturalism is as much Nigerian, West Indian, Malaysian, or Indian as North American, European, or Australian. Okay, so taken in loose sense, this you find, yeah, this is true, but it obscures the power relation operating between different cultural groups in the countries listed, in some of which race is a determining factor. Neither in society nor in literature does the party uh, or the parity, which is assumed to underlie the multiculturalism, operate as it is, ideally meant to. So King is, you know, aware of this and to theorize the, contestatory relation in the multicultural uh, Commonwealth. He uses the American model of the cultural wars in the United Nations. So you find what is disturbing is in the unifying force he attributes to the English language as a medium of communication, which can resolve, the intra and the international problems in both multicultural nations like Nigeria and India, and multicultural body like the, Commonwealth. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So, so in discussing these variants of newness, we find purpose has been to prepare the ground for a political versus non-political stances in the area, variously which is described as Commonwealth literature or new literatures in English, um, that we find. Okay. Now we'll talk about the post-colonial engagements. Just give me a moment. Okay, coming on to the political theory or the theoretical politics. I will share with you one quotation in the chat box. Can you see?
Yes, sir.
Can you see that?
Yes, sir. Yeah. Can
Yeah,
see.
please read that. First read that and then first read and then I will explain. Once you read, just let me know.
Okay, sir. Read it.
Okay. So you find the quotation is from the Empire Writes Back Theory and Practices in Post-Colonial Literatures. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So you find this quotation from it at length to indicate that author of this book, although aware that the term has been used previously, occasionally being employed in other kinds of discourse, appropriate it for cross cultural discussion of the literary text, to which they give the grand name, the cross cultural criticism. So it is this literary cultural post coloniality which Ehzaz Ahmad takes issue with when he points out that the first major debate on the idea of post colonialism was initiated in 1972 by Hamza Alvi's article, The State in Post Colonial Societies, Pakistan and Bangladesh, which appeared in the New Left Review. It's a magazine. So you find when the term came to be used in the 1980s, you find Ahmad observes it was with no memory that it has originated not in cultural theory but in political theory, with the object of inquiry, and that time being not post colonial literature or the post colonial intellectual, but the post colonial state. Okay, this you find in 1995. So the depoliticizing of the term and its use. Just a minute. So you find the depoliticizing of this term of the term. It's used to label periods, authors, texts, and you find intellectual, has resulted in the content containment of literature and its criticism from the social and political and material processes which influence it. We find only one of these processes, colonialism, and only one of its effect, discursivity, is the object of attention in a depoliticized literary and cultural usage of the post-colonial theory. And you find this is why reservations have been expressed against what Ashcroft et al. Call, this piece, which is the quotes which I have sent is written by Ashcroft and some more people. So says a continuity of preoccupations in the culture. Notice, the written uh, culture which is written in singular, which affected by the imperial process from the moment of colonization to the present day. So you find among other, others, Vijay Mishra and Bob Hodge have called, for an adequate materialistic theory of post-colonialism, which can, take into account how colonialism variously affected different cultures. The account given by the authors of the empire rights back from the moment of colonialization to the present day was ruptured decisively in at various points when the former colonies became independent, and hence it has also been suggested that the terms neo-colonialism and post-independence are probably more suitable. So you find a sustained engagement with with the term has led, to doing away with its hyphenated form. When we write post hyphen colonial. Okay, so that's the hyphenated word. Okay, so we find that an adoption of the unhyphenated word without the hyphen, writing the post colonialism as more reflective of the continued operation of the material, which is social and linguistic form of colonialism in potentially independent countries. Please do not think that the critics take away the efficacy of the term post colonialism. But on the contrary, you find it is only when a discipline is criticized that it can remedy the lacuna which creep in deep to inadequate or selective theorization, like the discursive approach to post-colonialism taken by the authors of the empire writes back. And judged by any standard, this is an important book for readers of post-colonial literature, but it needs to be supplemented by other readings, some of which have you see many places it has been suggested. And then I will talk to you about the diasporic intellectuals and the high theory. Deepak, are you getting me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, Shruti. Okay. So you find the diasporic intellectuals and the high theory. Okay, before that, let me tell you about the textual or the revolutionary oppositionality. So, one of the fundamental texts of the post-colonial theory is Edward Said's brilliant account of construction of the Orient by Western discourse. And in Said's words, European culture was able to manage and even produce the Orient politically, sociologically, militarily, ideologically, scientifically, and imaginatively during the post Enlightened period. So, Seth's work is part of what has now come to be called as the colonial discourse analysis, and in directing attention to the discursive production of meanings, Orientalism is seen as representing the first phase of political theory. So this textual oppositionalism can be compared and contrasted with that of Franz Fanon. Fanon, gives a description of the phases which native cultural producers, go through in their relation with the colonial culture. A period which is, unqualified assimilation, followed by a stage in which the native is, disturbed and decides to remember what he is. But finally, you find the fighting phase in which he will shake the people. We find in the 50s and the 60s, Fanon wrote about native absorption of an opposition to the colonial culture as the other, with reference to Algeria and Haiti. This is a kind of oppositionality different from the one generated by SED's enterprise of diagnosing how the West absorbed and represented the Orient and the others in the 1970s. Later in the work of the Kenyan activists and writers, uh, Ngugi wa Thiong'o, there is an awareness about the materialistic basis of textuality, okay, as well as a commitment to its revolutionary potential. And to this end, you find he has repeatedly pointed out the stereotypical depiction of Africa, its environs and its people by imperialistic writers like Rudyard, Kipling, Reader Haggard's, Elspeth Huxley, and others. And in addition, you find he encounters such representations in his novels and criticism, and which focuses on the struggles of the uh, pluralitarists against their colonial and or the neo-colonial masters. And he has also called for an abolition of the English language and its literature, and an adoption of the African languages and literature in the interest of forging a positive self image of the African of the African in the seminal work entitled Decolonializing the Mind. So the promul- promulgation of such idea has not been without a price. Gugi was held as a political detain- detainee for a year in post-colonial Kenya, and has now been living in exile for a good many years in New York. And it is to this aspect of exile also referred to as diasporic, you know um, that you find. So the diasporic, you know talking about the diasporic intellectuals and the high theory, you find the career graph of the diasporic intellectual. For example, like Homi Bhava, Edward said, Gayatri Spivak attest to the institutionalization of post-colonial theory in Western, particularly the US academia. So we find their origins in the third world, as well as their theorization about their own positionality enable them to occupy a location which is comfortably marginal to the center. And in this, in their own very different ways, the members of these holy post colonial trinity have drawn attention to figures ignored by high theory, the migrant at the interstices of culture, that is Bhaba, the gendered subaltern Spivak, um, that is Gaitis Spivak, and the stereotyped Orientals said by Edward said. I hope you are getting me.
Yes, sir.
So, one of the frequent objections against this theoretical practice is its over reliance on the post structural terminology and the ideology, with its focus on the decentering of the meaning due to an inherent indeterminacy in the discourse. You find, for instance, you can say in her most widely discussed essay, Can the Subaltern Speak? Spivak is self reflexive about her role as the investigating academic whose object of inquiry is the female subaltern subject. And it's no wonder then that given this hierarchization, the conclusion draws is that the subaltern cannot speak. But one might add that she is spoken for the West by the academic mediators like Spivak. So you find this need not take away the form from the value of such theorizations, for they, to deal with issues of race, gender, class, and caste. For many of their anti imperialistic critics, this theorist draw upon canonical texts by Jane Austen, Charles Dickens, Rudyard Kipling, Joseph Conrad, to name some of the few of these readings, these works oppositionally, to recover the suppressed voices in them, whether of migrants, natives, or women. Spivak and said add a new dimension to the literary and critical representation. In this respect, Bhaba's reading of works by Franz Fanon, Toni Morrison, Derek Walcott, and others can also be seen as an attempt towards establishing an alternative post-colonial canon, even though the aim is to dismantle the canons. Okay, so this is all about um, talking about the introduction, talking about the literatures, the post-colonial literature. Am I clear?
Okay,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Deepak, what is your background? Means uh, your graduation studies.
In science, sir, physics.
Oh, okay, physics. Do you find English easy?
Okay, sir. It's fine.
Okay. Shruti, what is your background?
English, sir. BA English.
Okay. And where are you from?
Hello, sir.
Yeah, Shruti, where are you from?
Kannur.
Sorry?
Kannur, Kannur.
Kannur, okay, okay. And are you working or you are
And accountant.
okay? You are an accountant. Okay. So with this, I think today uh, we can finish till here. Have you read this thing earlier?
No, sir.
Okay. So what I'll do is I will make one group,
Okay,
um,
sir.
and I will add you so that any sort of information or some sort of text that I want to give, I can give it to you. MEG-8 2020. Are you both okay with tomorrow if we have a class tomorrow and day after?
Tomorrow I might be at work, sir. So
Or you have some work?
yes, sir.
Okay. Um,
Tomorrow evening. Okay, sir.
yeah, I'm talking about evening.
Yes, sir.
You
Yeah, it will be late, sir. Tomorrow it will be like 8 or 9 p.m.
okay? 8 to 10. Will it be okay?
Okay, sir. I will
Okay.
see. Okay. Okay,
No,
sir.
no. If you say I'm making the group, I will. Um, just a minute. I will share you the link here in the group so that it will be easier for you. Just a minute. Yeah, I've sent the link. Can you join?
Okay, sir.
You can click on that link and you can join.
Okay, sir.
652 is Deepak. Deepak, your last three digits.
Yes, sir. 652.
Yeah, yeah. Shruti, are you joining? Shruti, are you facing any problem in joining?
Yes, sir. I can't
You give
join.
me, okay. You give me a number. I will add it. I think you joined 9 4.
Join, sir.
Yeah, 459 last, right?
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Please do not share this with other, students because this is especially for MEG-8. Okay,
Okay, sir.
Okay, sir.
okay. So today can we end the class here?
Okay, sir.
Yeah. And
Okay.
tomorrow, if at all tomorrow, if both of you, if you have time, then we can have the class. Okay.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Please write in the group then, when if
Okay, sir.
you are available tomorrow.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Okay, sir.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Good
Thank
night.
you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Good night.
Good night, sir.
Hello, Deepak.
Hello, Shruti.
Uh, uh, where are you?
From Odisha.
Odisha. Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Your language, Hindi or English? Hmm.
Well, Odia.
Odia.
We have
Okay, okay.
Odia language, but Hindi and English is okay.
Uh, uh,
You are from Kannur, Kerala, right?
Kannur. Kannur, Srikandapuram.
Okay.
Okay, okay. Okay, good night.
Okay, good night. Thank you.
Okay.